David played in the NBA for 15 seasons, winning 2 championships as a member of the Golden State Warriors. He's long advocated that professional athletes use their platform to speak out on political and social issues. In October of 2019, professional basketball became embroiled in China-U.S. relations. It all started when Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey tweeted his support for protesters in Hong Kong. The days following the since-deleted tweet, Chinese basketball leagues, sponsors, and partners cut ties with the Rockets and the NBA.
One of the reasons we want to talk to you is the statement from the Houston Rockets general manager, which touched off quite a controversy. You weighed in on this. There was some backlash for what you had to say. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Well, I don't really listen to a lot of the noise. I just try to, use my platform to bring, clarity and hopefully, messages that resonate with people because I know a lot of young people listen to me and particularly because of my NBA background. So when I saw the issue with Hong Kong and Daryl Morey earlier in the year, I just felt like it was something that, political agendas were behind all of it, and some of the usual suspects were behind it. So I cautioned, the players, to just use their own intelligence and, follow the facts and listen to logical positions on what was actually going on in Hong Kong.
You say there's intellectual laziness when it comes to these issues, that people really don't dig deep. You hear from a lot of, like you said, politicians who can really kind of take these issues and make them kind of lightning rods to, engender the spirit of their base. Give me your sense about what was happening with this.
Well, I just felt like it was something that, again, a political issue that political people were trying to sort of put NBA players as the face of it for something that I think honestly, if you look at the history of Hong Kong and you understand the history of colonialism, it's simply a situation where folks are working to keep the colonial institutions in place. And those of us who are organized around peace and justice and want to see a fair and just society as we evolve, we have to be able to call out these things as we see them. And, again, NBA players, professional athletes have these huge platforms. And those of us who are aware need to make sure that, again, these platforms are used to promote the right messages to the world.
Talking about huge platforms and huge stars, LeBron James has a huge platform. He's a huge star. And I'm sure, as you recall, he chimed in and kind of had some statements to ESPN about his thoughts about Donald Trump, that he felt like he didn't really care about the people. And of course, a presenter on Fox News got on and said basically he shouldn't run his mouth off, should keep his political opinions to himself, just dribble the ball and shut up. And yet when he was asked about China when he arrived in Shanghai, he said, this is layered. There's a lot of different issues at play. I don't feel comfortable talking about it. I'm not that informed about it. That's a measured response. Obviously, he knows a lot about Black Lives Matter. He knows about these social issues. And he also pointed that out. I talk when I know stuff about these issues. In this case, I'm not that informed. And yet he was ripped by the same people who had ripped him for not shutting up and dribbling.
Right. It's absolute hypocrisy if you think about it, right? The people that they want athletes sort of to speak when it's beneficial for them. And if it's against their agenda, if it's against sort of one of these political opinions that, may have some political agendism behind it in terms of geopolitics, then all of a sudden they want players to use their voices. And so, again, it's organized around peace and justice initiatives. So I want to make sure that, again, people like LeBron James and others who have these massive platforms that can reach these wide, ranges of audiences, that these guys, again, are not used in any way by people who have nefarious political agendas.
So Daryl Morey's tweet, give me your sense of what the relationship was between the NBA and China before the tweet and since.
The relationship with between NBA and China was great. The NBA is, contrary to, some of the narratives, right, that the NBA is, China's puppet and all this other type of stuff. It was, legitimately, the players are revered over there. They're respected. People respect them for the level of basketball and that they've reached and can play. They're respected for what they know about the game. And so the relationship was positive. One of the things that I was trying to figure out was what, was behind, the timing of Morey's tweet. And obviously he wasn't very educated about the nature of what was going on in China or in Hong Kong at the time. And again, historically, if you take out the colonization period, Hong Kong was a part of China and is a part of China and has been a part of China for its history. So the idea that we would, measure Hong Kong in terms of a colonial sense, I think clouded, for me, it clouded, what the tweet was about, and it clouded really the positions, of the NBA. And I think the NBA did a good job in sort of staying out of the way in terms of dealing with the political agenda that we know was behind the comment in the first place.
When you reached out to players that you've known for a long time saying, hey, don't get caught up in this, don't be a pawn, what was the response?
Well, surprisingly, I think guys kind of understood it. We've seen now, those of us who have lived in the last, we're adults over the last 20 years, we've seen these different instances of this sort of colonial lust that folks continue to have. And we've seen, things like the invasion of Iraq and the invasion of different countries around the world not go in a positive direction. And we've seen the role that media has played in that. And I think players are just more aware now. One of the things I like to point to is that, with social media and the availability of information at your fingertips and your phone, you're able to go out and really seek answers for yourself. And, when things don't quite add up, which they weren't adding up in this case in terms of this NBA China fiasco, I think players use their own consciousness to understand. And having a lot of guys having been to China understood that the position that people were trying to make players feel about China wasn't what we experienced when we were there.
Basketball's appeal in China has grown swiftly over the last 4 decades. In 1979, the NBA held its first exhibition games in China, and in 1987 began broadcasting games there. When Yao Ming was drafted by the Houston Rockets in 2002, Chinese fans could cheer on a hometown favorite who would go on to become an international star. The NBA's presence in China further grew with the creation of NBA China in 2008, worth $4 billion last year. The popularity of basketball in China means top players like David often travel there to play games. It also allows for players to gain a greater understanding of the country.
It's so interesting listening to some of the conversations that you've done about China. You talk about China poverty alleviation. I mean, we don't hear a lot about that and how many people were lifted out of poverty in China. Talk to us about what you see as unfair representation of China. What does the U.S., what does the average U.S. citizen not get right about China, do you think?
Well, I think, obviously because of, the angle our media takes. Our media tends to, again, follow sort of the state guidelines in terms of just repeating information and things that haven't been vetted out or sourced out properly. Again, a lot of political agendaism behind these things. And again, it's not good for our society. It hasn't produced positive results, for our society. What we have is a large number of uninformed people. People who are politically aligned one way or the other and are unable to listen to dissenting opinions or unable to understand that you have to have nuance based on, whatever the subject that you're talking about. And so that's what you see with China, right? China is a very nuanced subject. It's a massive country, and it operates under a different social and political system and cultural system. And it takes a certain sort of attitude to be able to be open-minded about learning another culture and learning about what other people and how other people are living. And then you measure that against sort of what your society is, and you find a way to live in peace and again, under a banner of peace and justice. And that isn't always the way that, well, not say always, that's not the way that American society has been organized and rationalized. And that's what a lot of us are aspiring toward and hoping that we can push this country toward, which is a nation that is more open to people and other cultures and doesn't seek to impose who we are on other people, rather live in a state of peace, with other people and respect our differences.
You've played in China. I've talked to other NBA players who've played in the United States and then also played in the CBA. And it strikes me as so interesting, when you're actually steeped in a country and you get to see it firsthand, the impact it can have on you, the interactions, all of that. But what about that aspect of it, the fact that you've been able to play there, get to know a little bit about China? What does that offer you in terms of conveying information about the country?
Well, I've been able to witness it firsthand. And so there's no better teacher than firsthand experience. I had a chance to visit China and Asia in general. I've been to Asia a few times, but when I went to China, again, it opened my eyes, right, about the development, about what the people are, the nature of the society, how peaceful the society is, really how welcoming, they are, to what we were bringing at the time, which was basketball. And for us, as basketball players, we recognize China is the largest basketball market in the world in terms of, they have the largest collection of people who enjoy the game of basketball. So that was something that I really was taken back by, because I didn't realize how large the game of basketball was there till I actually got there. I didn't realize how immersed young Chinese athletes are in the game of basketball. So I looked at it as a conduit, by which I could learn, the culture and again, learn about myself through visiting other places.
And I want you to register to vote.
David is also outspoken about issues affecting the African American community, including police brutality. In August of 2020, Jacob Blake, an African American, was shot in the back by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He survived, but is now paralyzed from the waist down. It sparked protest across the state and the nation.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Days later, the Milwaukee Bucks made history by boycotting their playoff game. The players demanded that the officers involved in Blake's shooting be held accountable.
Yeah, it was a shocking moment. I thought the players, listened to their conscience, listened to their inner voice, and decided to send a big message, worldwide. And obviously, I think when you see guys who, make a decision to do something at the stage that the NBA is, you're obviously going to see other athletes and other folks around the professional world respond. And I thought that's what Major League Baseball did. Obviously, the WNBA has been ahead of these issues for years, and they too made some powerful statements in their solidarity with the NBA players. There's been a struggle in American society for quite some time for fairness, for justice, particularly as it pertains to African Americans. And we're at a stage in history now where these, because of social media and because of the dynamics of video, we're starting to witness, and we've been able to witness really in the last 10 years and the rise of, the camera phone, we've been able to witness some of the atrocities that happen in the day-to-day of African-American life here, particularly with the encounters with the police. And so what you see now is folks who are out protesting, folks who have, again, their inner consciousness is awakened, and it's about trying to transform America, right? It's trying to transform the society that we are active participants in. And it's working in order to strengthen our country, right? The Black Lives Matter movement and raising the issues of police brutality and economic injustice, and again, our school to prison pipeline and all the different ails that plague American society, gun violence. These are the things that we folks who are struggling against the system as it stands are working to create a better future, right? The ideas that people are putting forward, like Medicare for all, and working on reforming police and the way that they interact with communities, these things are going to make our society better. They're going to make our society stronger. if we can really get behind them, right, and understanding that taking care of the least of our citizens should be our priority, right? Taking care of the marginalized and taking care of our youth and educating them in the right way should be our focus, because it's going to make us better.
David, I want to get your thoughts before you go on a comment from Sean Doolittle. He was a pitcher with the Nationals. He is a pitcher with the Nationals. He said sports are like the reward of a functional society. Of course, he was talking about the response to the pandemic, but with Black Lives Matter and racial inequality, is society deserving of sports at this stage?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Because again, we have a lot more important issues, right, to discuss and to put on the forefront. I think this is, some of the pushback that some of the players had going into the bubble. It was the idea that, sports would distract away from the matters at hand, right? We need education reform in this society. We need police reform in this society. We need justice, right, in our court systems. There are a lot of issues that are plaguing our society. So, sports being at the forefront right now may not be the most important thing. And being entertained we may have to deal with not being entertained if it means, we change the way that communities are policed in this country.
Perhaps it's a time for more introspection. How do you think this is all going to play out, in the days ahead, would you say?
I don't know. I think, for a lot of the players, it was emotional. I don't know. I haven't necessarily found that there's a list or a group of guys who have organized themselves in a certain way within this context. So I think a lot of it was just guys, feeling the moment and wanting to make a statement, because this latest incident, and I don't watch them. I don't deal with the visual trauma. But this latest incident, again, is just another line of incidents where there could have been and should have been a different outcome had the victim be seen as a human being.
David West, a real thoughtful discussion. Thanks for taking time for us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.